This is a 2025 Kia K5 GT 2.5T, and it's time for a road trip. I already reviewed this car, and there was a lot of it that I liked, but I was also curious how this turbocharged 2.5 liter did in terms of fuel economy, especially on the road. So we're going to take it on a more than 350 mile trip to see how it holds up. And we're doing it in far less than ideal conditions. It is currently 35 degrees and snowing. So whatever fuel economy we get, it's probably going to be a little bit better in better weather conditions. Officially, according to the EPA, the K5 will get 23 miles to the gallon in the city, 33 miles to the gallon on the highway, 27 combined. The vast majority of the travel will be on the interstate, so we'll see how close to 33 miles to the gallon we can get. That said, I'm going to be in the normal driving mode, and I'm going to be going with traffic. I'm not trying to achieve the best possible fuel economy. I'm just seeing what fuel economy I get while using it, but also to see how comfortable the car is, how the seats hold up, how quiet it is, all those types of things. See what it's like. And I will test fuel economy in two different ways. I am going to look at the trip computer, and I did also just top off the tank before I started this video, and we'll top it off again at the end to see what fuel economy I get that way. So with all that, let's reset the trip computer and get going. There's my trip computer right there. Hold down the OK button here. Time to go. Oh, and as you can see, 35 degrees and snowing. All right, let's go. Okay, cruise control is set at 78 miles an hour, and like I said, I expect to go with traffic largely, and I'm cautiously optimistic that there will not be that much traffic. I hope to get the vast majority of this trip done in between rush hours, not in rush hour, and hopefully the weather doesn't get too bad. This being the top of the line GT Kia K5 means a couple of things. First, this is above 4 other trims, the LXS, EX, and the GT line in both front and all-wheel drive. The GT line is the only trim of Kia K5 that offers all-wheel drive. The GT is also the only K5 that gets the turbocharged 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine. New for 2025 is that the other trims also get a 2.5 liter inline 4-cylinder, but it's naturally aspirated. And that means that instead of getting 191 horsepower, I get 290 horsepower. Yeah, 99 horsepower jump, I will happily take that. Also, instead of 181 pound-feet of torque, I get 311 pound-feet of torque. But don't forget, I get that through the front wheels. This is front-wheel drive. Every K5 is front-wheel drive except for that all-wheel drive GT line. And that means that the only engine you can get with all-wheel drive is the naturally aspirated 2.5 liter. Also, it's 2 different transmissions. With the other engine, you get an 8-speed automatic transmission, but with this turbocharged engine, you get an 8-speed dual clutch transmission. And you feel that not too much on the interstate. It's rolling along smoothly right now, no problem. But as you accelerate, you get less smoothness, a little bit more surge. You feel clutch engagement just a little bit. It's not as smooth as a torque converter would be, but it is also a little bit quicker. I've been on the interstate for a few miles now, and my initial impressions are the seats are very comfortable, very supportive. I've got nice upper bolstering here and decent lower bolstering down low as well. I also have plenty of controls to adjust it just so. I also have heated seat and ventilated seat, don't need that now, but also a heated steering wheel, so it was nice to get nice and warm in this car. And cabin isolation is pretty good. I can hear some wind noise through the breaks of the windows right here and a little bit around the side view mirror, but it's generally pretty well controlled. And considering that we've got some wind and some snow, I'm actually pleasantly surprised with that. And I've got plenty of features built into this K5. I have wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto. I have a 12-inch digital instrument cluster, and a 12.3-inch center display, and dual zone climate control, USB ports galore, a wireless smartphone charger, and on and on. So far, this feels like it's going to be a very pleasant trip. And at this moment, I'm getting 26.9 miles to the gallon. Here, let me show you. 27. All right, I'll check in a bit. Okay, just about 50 miles into my trip, and we have achieved 31.7 miles to the gallon thus far. Let me show you. There it is. And thankfully, the snow has stopped as well. Still cold, 36 degrees out, but not snowing at least. And I'm still really enjoying this car. The seats are very comfortable, and now that we don't have quite as much wind with the snow or anything, there's still some wind you can hear through the seams and those types of things, but it is pretty darn minimal. So this is proving to be a very comfortable mid-size sedan. I'm quite enjoying it. Also, I didn't mention it before, but when you're in 8th gear, the turbocharged engine hums along at 1900 RPM, and it has a nice smooth thrum to it. It's a nice, well-balanced, high-quality sound that you get from the engine, so I appreciate that. I also have a lot of driving aids. When you're on a road trip, there's moments where that's quite convenient. We do, of course, have highway driving assist. I am going through a subtle curve right now, so if you take your hands off the wheel, the car will keep steering, will keep you fairly well centered in the lane, and as long as you're paying attention and looking at the road, it doesn't complain to put your hands back on the wheel immediately, so you have a few seconds. But there's the request, hands back on the wheel, please. This is not Highway Driving Assist 2 that is in some Hyundai and Kia cars, where it will do lane changes for you and things like that, but you do get the cameras. So if you turn it to the right, you get a right turn signal, and if you turn it to the left, you get a left turn signal. I also do appreciate the space I have. I have plenty of shoulder and elbow room in here, and lots of leg room to work with as well. Plenty of adjustment in the seat. In fact, I am going to give myself just a little bit more lumbar support right now. That's nice. And we'll just keep going. So far, very, very good. All right, 100 miles into the trip, still very comfortable, still very much enjoying the Kia K5 generally, and the fuel economy does continue to tick up ever so slightly. We are now at 32.8 miles to the gallon. Let me show you. There you go. And I have to say, I'm actually kind of impressed, because despite the colder weather and despite a little bit of snow early on, we're pretty much tracking with the EPA fuel economy rating. And that's also despite going faster than the EPA probably expects you to go to get this number. So I'm going to keep an eye on that as this trip progresses, and I'll definitely be curious to see how it compares to calculating the number on my own based on gallons consumed and miles driven, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so far, very happy with how this Kia K5 drives and the fuel economy that I'm getting from this turbocharged 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine. Okay, just a little bit past 150 miles into this trip, and we are still in the high 32s for fuel economy. Let me show you. 32.8 miles per gallon. I am almost to the halfway point of this trip, so the next time I check in, I am going to be on my way back, which means two things. One, trip's going pretty well, and it's going to be over 300 miles, but not by a large amount. And two, I'm going to get the other side. So if I was trending uphill on the way out, I'll be trending downhill back, or vice versa. And if there's any prevailing winds or anything like that, with the weather today, I'll be getting the opposite side of that as well. So hopefully that will give a relatively decent balance for the overall fuel economy number. But generally, I have to say I am pretty impressed that despite the less than ideal conditions, the K5 GT is holding up pretty well to its fuel economy number. Generally speaking, it seems that gasoline powered cars have an easier time matching or even possibly beating their fuel economy numbers than hybrid and EV cars do. I have a couple of ideas of why that might be the case, but it's definitely something I'm going to keep an eye out because it's an interesting data point. But I am still largely comfortable in the K5, still nice and warm and everything like that. The other thing I wanted to point out as well is I have not gone through much more than a quarter tank of gas according to the fuel economy gauge anyway, so that's been nice to see as well. It doesn't look like I'm gonna have to worry about filling up before I get back to where I started at all, so nice little touch there. Anyway, I will catch up with you guys again when I'm on my way back. All right, officially back on my way home, not yet to the 200-mile mark, but there was some city driving around my halfway mark, and that did drop my fuel economy a little bit. I'm now sitting right around 32 miles to the gallon, and I do seem to be in just a tiny bit more wind at the moment than I was on my way here, so that might be affecting my fuel economy a little bit too, but let me show you where I'm at the moment. Well, there you go, it just dropped a little bit more, 31.9 miles to the gallon as we go, but we'll see how it changes on our way home. All right, a little bit more than 250 miles into this trip, and more than anything, this K5 is proving comfortable, convenient, real easy to use. The center display, love having the heated seat and the heated steering wheel. I still find the seat comfortable and generally enjoying it. The wind noise is starting to get to me just a little bit, but again, it's competitive with the segment, maybe not class leading though. And for fuel economy, we're actually doing a little bit better on the first part of the trip, but we'll see how that changes. We still have a big chunk of miles to go, but we're currently at 31.7 miles to the gallon. There you see it right there. And to be honest, this is a little bit more of the kind of fuel economy I was expecting to get, considering the colder weather and everything else. So we'll see if that continues to drop a little further, or if we get some recovery for the final leg of this trip. As I said earlier, there was a little bit of city driving in the middle. The other thing I want to say is that the highway driving assist is proving a useful thing. Hands aren't on the wheel right now, and the car steers itself just fine, and generally gives me a good 30 seconds before it starts complaining again. So if you want to get your hands free for a quick drink or something like that, you can do that. But overall, quite pleased with this Kia K5 so far. All right, 300 miles in, and fuel economy has recovered a little bit. We are up to 32 miles to the gallon. Let me show you. And as you can see, the weather has actually cooled off a little bit, and it is getting quite cloudy. I'm wondering if we might finish this trip just as we started it with some snow, but we will see soon enough. I'm going to finish at the gas station where I started, and I will fill the car back up and give both fuel economy numbers, what the trip computer says, and what the calculation says, and see how those two compare. Considering that we have nearly 300 horsepower on tap and more than 300 pound-feet of torque, considering that we do have a pretty darn comfortable car and a lot of amenities inside this car, and that as tested out the door, this is under $40,000 for all this. This is in a lot of ways a success, because the K5 looks nice, it's comfortable inside, it's reasonably quiet, it's quite comfortable, and fuel economy, no matter what the final number is, solid numbers. Now, hybrids definitely do better than this, but this does better than I expected. Okay, let's see the final numbers in a moment. All right, as you can see, got to the gas station, filled this back up, just parked, and the final fuel economy was 32.2 miles to the gallon. You can see the temperature stayed pretty consistently cold, It is now 35 degrees. Also, driving time itself, I went 340 miles in 5 hours. So I'll go ahead and put that average speed up for you to see. I kept consistent. I maintained 78 miles an hour as the set cruise speed, and given traffic and everything else, obviously averaged a little bit slower than that. And as you can see, I put in 10.6, 10.7-ish gallons of gas in this car. And based on the trip computer going 340 miles, I averaged 31.8 miles to the gallon according to that math. So those two line up fairly closely to be within half a mile per gallon for those types of calculations, which are pretty rough. Depends on a lot of different variables of the pump reading accurately and how full the gas tank was each time, etc., etc. So, you know, I'd say that's pretty good. And overall, for a non-hybrid mid-size sedan like this, I would say that's pretty solid fuel economy, especially when you have as much power as you do on tap in this car. But also, really, this car was comfortable. It was responsive when I needed to change lanes and those types of things, and had a lot of amenities. I've driven a lot of the modern mid-size sedans, and honestly, this one has a lot of strengths, even among the best of them. So, yeah, honestly, really high marks for this updated Kia K5, this one being the GT with a turbocharged 2.5 liter. I found this test interesting. I hope you found it helpful. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you very much for watching.